Welcome to LNG. District Court Judge Samuel Winder is here. We invited him to discuss his appointment and his re-election campaign. Welcome to the show, Judge.
It's great to be here, John.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
We'll get a little bit into your background, like where you grew up and things like that. Okay, so let me ask you the first question, which I'm sure everybody would like to know, where you grew up, and then I'll let you take it from there.
Well, I was born in Albuquerque. My father was from southern Louisiana. He left southern Louisiana probably the bitter times of the late 50s, when we all know what was going on in the 50s. He moved out to Albuquerque when he was 17 years old and met my mother. He was African American, and my mom half Navajo, half Ute, and they married each other, and they raised my brother and me here in Albuquerque. But my parents would send me up to southern Colorado to the Southern Ute Indian Reservation to be with my grandparents. So I grew up in Albuquerque, but my summers when I was a young teenager were in southern Colorado on the Southern Ute Indian Reservation.
So spent a lot of time there.
Yeah, spent a lot of time there.
Wow, that's good. Well, so, and then you went to high school there in
no,
Southern California?
I graduated from Manzano High School in 1980.
Oh.
So my grandparents, I'd spend summers up there. My parents would send me up to learn the value of hard work up in southern Colorado, to be with my grandparents. And then I would come back during the school year to attend school. I went to McCullum High School in the northeast part of town, Kennedy Junior High, and graduated from Manzano High School in 1980.
Wow, okay. And then you went to, where'd you go after you went to, you went to college, right?
Yes, I went to Stanford University, and I have to give credit to my brother. He's the one that went first, and he inspired me to go ahead and apply to Stanford. And so I had a great experience out in the Bay Area for 4 years.
What was that like, going from New Mexico all the way? Was that like a shock, the cultural shock, because you're from going from like a Southwest desert area into the, I'm sure that was nice, but
it was a huge difference. I'd never been to California in my life.
Yeah, it's a big area, big city. Yeah.
It is, and I remember flying into San Francisco at the airport, and it was a late evening, and my brother picked me up, and he drove me to the campus. It was about 10 o'clock, and he drove me to the area where it's called Palm Drive, and I'd never seen palm trees in my life, and so to see those palm trees was the first time in my life I'd seen any palm trees. And I remember going out with some of the students. They brought us out, all the freshmen, for orientation, and I remember going out to Half Moon Bay or Santa Cruz and seeing the ocean for the first time in my life. I'd never seen the ocean in my life, so I can remember how beautiful it was. So it was a great experience, but it was a cultural shock from going from Albuquerque, Southern Ute Reservation, up to the Bay Area. But I loved the experience.
Because it's so huge there, so much population.
Yeah, well, that was a long time ago, but then yes, there was huge. I remember the traffic in San Francisco. I'd never been to San Francisco in my life, but going to San Francisco and seeing all the traffic was pretty amazing for a young 18-year-old.
Yes. So what was Stanford like? What was the campus like?
Beautiful campus. I think Stanford's got one of the most beautiful campuses in the country. I know some of those folks from the East Coast might disagree with me, but it's a very, very beautiful campus. I really enjoyed my experience there, but it's a beautiful campus.
And then you came back from Stanford, right? You got your engineering degree from there?
I received my engineering degree, civil engineering. Civil engineering. And I wanted to go back and work for a tribe, and I am working for the Navajo, not for the Navajo people. I worked for the Public Health Service with the Indian Health Services as a project engineer for the
This is right after when you came back from Stanford.
Right, well, I can tell you the funny part. The first thing that happened, I remember leaving college. It was 1984, and they had the Olympics in 1984, and some of my friends are going to Los Angeles for the games, and my uncle called me up. He said, Sam, I've got a job for you, because he was the natural resources director for the tribe.
Okay.
And so I took I graduated on a Sunday, I took the LSAT on Monday, and I drove all the way from Northern California all the way to Colorado, got home at about 3:30 in the morning onto the reservation, and I thought it was going to be an easy day, the first day off from college. On a drive, but what ended up happening is I remember getting there, the first day sometimes you're doing orientation.
Correct.
Well, we didn't do orientation. What ended up happening is I ended up surveying that day. It was a lot of work.
I'm sure.
That was my first job. I got a chance to be with my grandparents, and then I started working for the Indian Health Services in Tuba City, Arizona that fall.
into Brazil. Why did you choose law?
I chose law for several reasons, but I met the very first judge I met in my life was Juan G. Burciaga. He was appointed by Jimmy Carter in the early 70s, and two of my classmates, it was his father.
Okay.
And I remember I was involved in student government at Stanford,
Yes.
pardon me, at Monsanto, and he came, actually we went to his chambers, and that's the first time I met a judge in my life.
I see.
And the idea of becoming a judge was ignited at that point, and there are, more than any other group in the country, the law impacts Native Americans. There's federal Indian law, there's a number of policy issues that have been addressed over the last 30 years, and I thought the law was the way that I wanted to go. But in the back of my mind, I thought, one of these days I want to be a judge. I met the very first lawyer that I met was a lawyer that worked for my tribe. I remember meeting him at a picnic when I was about 12.
Wow.
And I met him, and that's where the idea of becoming a lawyer and a judge was inspired when I was a young man.
We'll take a break. We'll take a 5-minute break. We'll be right back. We're back with Judge Samuel Winder, for District Court Judge, and we're talking about a little bit about his bio. And so I think we're just about to get into you going into UNM law at that point.
Yes.
We'll take it from there.
Yeah, well, I was in Tuba City, Arizona, and I was helping design water and sanitation facilities for Navajo people on the Navajo Reservation. And I knew I wanted to go to law school, and so I applied. I took the LSATs the day after I graduated from Stanford, and I got into UNM Law School. I went to the pre-law summer program in 1985, which is a great preparation for any law student, and went to law school in 1985, developed some strong friendships with persons that I still have relationships, professional relationships with today, and graduated in 1988.
And right after you graduated from UNM Law, I think you had moved to Washington, correct?
Yes, I wanted to practice Indian law, federal Indian law, and one of my professors in law school was a partner who had taken some time off to teach, and I developed a friendship, and he was my professor, and I was recruited to go to Washington, D.C. to work for the law firm that he was associated with. And again, I had never been in Washington. I interned for the Department of Justice when I was in law school. That's the first time I'd been to Washington, D.C. But I went to Washington, had a great experience there, but then I was recruited to go to work for the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs, where I worked for Senator John McCain.
What was Washington like? I know it's a tough town.
It's a tough town. It's very expensive.
Very expensive,
but it's a
to live
beautiful
there, yeah.
place.
But it's a great experience.
It's
for
a
you.
great experience. I remember seeing the Capitol for the first time in my life, and
That must have been a neat experience.
I think everyone should go to Washington, D.C. and see the White House and see the mall, the museums. It's just an incredible
It's
place.
life-changing.
It is life-changing.
To see all the monuments there
Yeah.
and stuff, see the Thomas Jefferson,
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
George Washington monument,
Absolutely.
Abraham Lincoln sitting. It was really, actually very moving.
That's one of my
yeah,
favorites.
yeah.
The Lincoln Memorial is probably my favorite.
Me too, yeah.
It's a beautiful...
It's a magnificent sight when you look at him sitting there. in the chair,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
And then, because it just takes you back into the time with the Civil War era and all that. You start to really get into history and all that.
Yeah.
I was always into history, but then I thought that was something that's life-changing when somebody sees Lincoln there sitting there. Such a...
I haven't been to Washington in about 7 years, but I want to go see the Martin Luther King Memorial.
Yeah, they just finished
Yeah,
that.
I want to go see that. I want to
Yeah,
take my children
yeah.
to see that.
I hear that's pretty nice, yeah.
He was when I went to law school, the application process, they asked us to set forth who the person that most inspired us, and it was Martin Luther King Jr. that inspired me, and I wrote about him in my essay to get into law school. So.
Wow. So and then you came back after that?
Came back.
Came back to Albuquerque?
Came back to Albuquerque, and again was recruited to go to the U.S. Attorney's Office. I was a federal prosecutor for close to 13 years. I was in the violent crime section for 5 years, and then I was recruited to go work for my tribe. I'm the first member of my tribe to graduate from law school, and my tribal council wanted me to go back and work for the tribe, and I did go work. I enjoyed the experience, but unfortunately there was a recall election for the tribal president.
I see.
And when that happened, my days were numbered.
Okay.
And so I was recruited to go back to the U.S. Attorney's Office, where I spent about another 6 years or so.
Yeah, but that helped your career a lot, though, being the US,
tremendous. It was
being an assistant U.S. attorney.
I prosecuted violent
Yeah.
crimes on Indian reservations and general crimes, and bank robbers are prosecuted by the U.S. Attorney's Office. So I had tremendous experience and developed some great trial skills, and had a chance to argue 8 cases before the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals.
I see.
So really enjoyed my experience as a prosecutor.
And then you're also licensed in the U.S. Supreme Court, correct?
I'm licensed in the U.S. Supreme Court.
The Ninth Circuit.
9th Circuit, 10th Circuit, the Colorado Supreme Court, the Southern Ute Tribal Court, Laguna Tribal Court. Yeah, so I've licensed to practice in several courts.
Wow. Okay. All right. So, and then you started your own practice in 2009.
I started my own practice. I worked for a very large law firm in the state, and I found out that I really didn't. I wanted to go back into trials because I wasn't getting any trial experience or wasn't in court, and so things worked out that I decided to start my own practice, and I really enjoyed that. I had a chance to do criminal defense.
Hold that thought for a second. We'll be right back. When we come back. We're back with District Court Judge Samuel Winder, and we're talking about his background a little bit, so come on in and join us. You were talking about 2009, you started your own practice, and then we'll take it from there. I'll let you take it from there.
Thank you, Jemai. I started my own practice, and my practice focused on criminal defense. I was blessed to step into a role of working with a friend who was getting ready to retire. And so my practice started very quickly. I represented probably over a year and a half or so, but over 110 persons.
And how long did you have your own practice?
I had it from May 2009 until my appointment.
Oh, to 2011?
Yeah.
Oh,
yes.
wow, okay.
Yes. So I really enjoyed it. You know, people ask me sometimes whether I enjoyed being a prosecutor or a defense attorney more.
And that was my next question. Did you enjoy?
And my answer, people not like the answer, but I enjoyed both. When I engage in anything, I do it with passion and do it with vigor. And so it was a tremendous experience to be a prosecutor, represent the rights of victims. As a defense attorney, it was a tremendous privilege to represent person's constitutional rights. So I think that's what people want in a judge, that is fair and impartial. And so having the benefit and blessing of being on both sides of the aisle was tremendously valuable. You know, I know people that have said that they can understand because they've practiced or they've been a judge, but until you actually walk in the shoes of a defense attorney representing someone's rights, it's difficult unless you've walked through those.
So that's what makes you fair as a judge.
That's what I believe makes me fair. You know, because you probably get a little embarrassed, but one of the judges that I think is one of the best judges in this state is Judge Browning. He's a federal district court judge. And I remember as a prosecutor and defense attorney, when I walked into his courtroom, I knew I was going to win some and I knew I was going to lose some. And no one could say that he's a pro-defense judge or pro-prosecution, fair and objective. And he robed me when I was invested on November the 19th. And the reason why I asked him to robe on me is because I want to be that type of judge that a person can say he's fair and impartial, he's not leaning towards the prosecution or defense, but he's going to be one that's fair and impartial. So,
in the district court, you have jury trials and non-jury trial, correct? Or
there can be bench trials, but I've been
in family law. I was talking to David the other day, and he said there's no jury trials.
They're all bench trials.
Bench trials, correct.
But I've had 4 jury trials already, and I enjoy it. In fact, I've got 4 more lined up over the next several months. What a tremendous
So how does that feel to be on the bench on the other side, where you used to be a litigator at one time, and then now you are?
I'll tell you, the most interesting part is when the verdict comes down, I know, and the litigants are looking at me trying to assess whether it's guilty or not guilty. And I've had there was a not guilty that I had a few weeks ago, and the others were guilty. But it's
you find out immediately.
It's very interesting from that perspective.
Well, it must be a pretty unique experience.
It's an incredible
to be
experience.
on the bench after you were a prosecutor and then a defense attorney, and with such a long, illustrious career, you were finally on the bench there for the last couple of years, right? 2011, right?
So actually, no. I just started. I've been on the bench 9 months.
9 months. So
yeah.
wow.
It's been a tremendous experience. And
so you've gone through 4 jury trials.
I've gone through. Well, actually, 1 I had to declare mistrial. Okay. So there are 4 trials but 3 jury trials, and it's been a tremendous experience. And really, I know the tricks that prosecutor, defense lawyer might play. So I've been on both sides of the aisle, so I think they know that too, which has been tremendous.
So. What do you attribute your success to?
My success I attribute to my parents and a strong faith in God. When I was a little boy, and you're a historian, Solomon is viewed as one of the wisest men ever. I remember hearing a story when I was a little boy about King Solomon asking for wisdom. Correct. And as a 6-year-old, I asked God for wisdom. And so my strong faith, and my father was a construction worker. He never graduated from junior high. He was not educated. He was a smart man. He taught me the value of hard work, perseverance. And so those values that my parents and my grandparents instilled in me, when I went up to southern Colorado, they would make me work. I wouldn't sit around. I would work hard, and so they taught me those values.
So you were pretty much a history student, and you were interested in history.
I was interested in history, yes.
I see. And that's what got you into law and all that. That's how you began. The interest must have been history, because you were talking about
Indian law. There's a lot of overlap between federal Indian law and constitutional law.
Correct.
And so my love for federal Indian law and these cases by Justice John Marshall, who wrote 3 bedrock opinions, I've studied since I was in law school. So I'm a student, not like you. I don't think I'm as good as a study as you might be in history, but it's one of the areas that I
always love history. Yes. I don't know. I was just fascinated by history.
Yes, I'm fascinated as well.
Yeah, I love looking at the founding fathers.
Absolutely.
And what they did, what happened, going back in time. I think I don't know. It was just me, but there's always that element of history that brings us into the present.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hold that thought for a second. We'll be right back. Okay, we're going to be right back with District Judge Samuel Winder. Okay, we're back with District Court Judge Samuel Winder, and we're talking about a little bit about the history, and please join us. Okay, Judge, we were talking about, I think we were in some part of history. I know
Sure.
we were talking about going back into the historical aspects of it. Tell me a little bit after when you were working for the Navajo Nation. I think we'll take it from there.
Okay. I was actually working on the Navajo Reservation for the federal government with Indian Health Services, but there I had a chance to, as I'd mentioned before.
And what did you do for them?
I was a project engineer, and on the Navajo Reservation, this was like 20 plus years ago, almost 30 years ago. The sanitation and water facilities are not like it is in Albuquerque. Some folks don't have running water or toilets. And so what we would do is design water and sanitation facilities for those families on the Navajo reservation that didn't have those basic needs that most of us take for granted.
Yeah, that's very true. There's a lot of situations involving the reservations. I know that's another topic. I think we'll bring you back to maybe discuss some of the topics. I was talking to the Laguna governor at one time, and he was mentioning that there was a lot of problem with propane and things of that sort.
Absolutely.
And a lot of well, not a lot of them, some of these things are never addressed in the media. So none of us really know what's going on with it.
That's true.
But we'll bring you back, hopefully for that, and then we'll talk about some of the other stuff, okay? We're almost running out of time here, but give us an idea about, talk a little bit about judicial restraint. I know we hear that term a lot, the restraint term, so talk a little bit about that.
Let me talk about it in the criminal context as well. My job as a judge in criminal court is to be the umpire. My job is not to be the prosecutor or defense attorney. And so there is restraint from that perspective. I'm a judge that's impartial and fair, but I believe that a judge should be restrained. I do not legislate from the bench. If there's a law that I am not comfortable with, it's not for me to decide that it's a bad law. It's for me to administer that law. So that's my view. And really, as far as the litigants that come in front of me, they just want to have a judge that is going to be looking at the statutes, looking at the rules of evidence, and making a call that's fair and impartial. So I believe that's my role.
How do you, when you're deciding on, especially when you're dealing with litigators, and you've been on both sides, do you often have to refer to other cases before you make any kind of ruling as far as being a district court judge?
Absolutely.
You always have to refer, like in common law, you have to refer to it.
Absolutely. Probably one of the biggest issues that a judge will have to make. I mean, there's decisions that judges make all the time, but issues with regard to suppressing evidence, whether a statement should be suppressed. We'll be looking to Miranda. I mean, that's the law of the land. And certainly there are progeny other cases since Miranda was decided addressing whether a stop was legal or not. Those are issues where we're looking at not only federal law, but state law as well to make sure that one's constitutional rights have not been violated.
So ultimately your job as a judge is to be totally fair. And I think it qualifies you because you've been on both sides. And I mean, I've just known you recently and I see you to be a very fair person. So I think all judges have to possess this quality of being fair, I think.
Absolutely.
And whenever there's issues, you'll always hear there's something wrong, but then ultimately people figure out that, one way or the other, that person was fair or not fair. When the media blows it up sometimes, it's always about the unfairness of judges. But I think your background uniquely qualifies you for that position. I'm very impressed with your background. You saw your background there. And I'm sure those watching, they can tell that you've been in law for many years, and you've been practicing your own practice. You worked as an assistant to the U.S. Attorney's Office. So you have a pretty decent career there. And personally, I'm honored to have you here to talk about it. I know you took time out of your busy day and came and saw us. So,
Jamai, thank you.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but if there's anything you'd like to say, we have like about 15 seconds left to the viewers. Is there anything else you would like them to know about you?
It's an honor to serve as a district court judge. And at the end of the day, I hope people will say, we couldn't tell whether he was a pro-prosecution or pro-defense judge. He was fair and impartial.
Perfect. Thank you for watching us. We're running out of time. We'll see you again next time. Thank you.